welcome to NFL Kickoff. I'm your host, Tom Zwiller, joined by the one and only Tony Nemetti. Our job is to get you in the audience ready for the upcoming weekend of NFL action, the last weekend of playoff games before the Super Bowl. It's super exciting. We're almost there. We're going to go over every single game, which normally is a tall task, but we only got two to work with, so we're going to go really in-depth with them, though. But first, a quick word from our sponsors. NFL Kickoff is presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. With only 3 games left, guys, we are running out of football. Luckily for everybody in the audience, you can make the best of what's left with our friends at DraftKings. Check out the link in the description to get a deposit match up to $1,000 through DraftKings and the Sports 2.0 network. All right, so we're going to do a quick divisional round breakdown because we had some really crazy games. We opened the sports weekend, with Titans-Bengals. That was a pretty good game, very close until the end. The legend of Evan McPherson, the kicker who was drafted, I believe, in the 5th round. His legend was born, and the legend of Joe Burrow continues on. Then we had a Packers-49ers game that was just absolutely bonkers. It was kind of the upset of the weekend, honestly. And then we moved over to Bucs-Rams. That was a crazy one. The Rams had a huge lead, almost blew it to the Bucs. Bucs climbed right back in, but Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp saved the day and took the Rams on to the conference championships. And then we had Chiefs-Bills, which may be the greatest game. I'm not going to say ever, but of this season, certainly.
Yes.
Although maybe it is the greatest game ever. I don't know. We'll have to talk about it when we get there. But first, let's talk about Bengals-Titans. What was your reaction here?
Bengals-Titans, it was an interesting game because when we were doing our kind of picks for this game last week, one of the things I said was Derrick Henry's going to come out on fresh legs, and one of two things was going to happen. That was going to be true, or he was going to come out and be a little rusty, be a little slow, and he wasn't going to quite get going. I thought there was no way. It's Derrick Henry, right? How is he going to come out slow? But he did, sure enough, and usually when a running back comes out super slow and they play him a lot, even if it's Derrick Henry, my go-to is kind of, well, why don't you just throw it more? I don't want to say that this game because Tannehill threw 3 interceptions. So I don't want to take the ball away from Derrick Henry, but I also don't want to give it to Ryan Tannehill. So what do you do instead? Well, if I'm the Titans, honestly, I think I would have benched Henry or made him the second string, and I would have gone with Donta Foreman because Donta Foreman did have 65 yards on 4 carries. Now, obviously, that is not sustainable over 20 to 25 carries. That is a ridiculous 16.5 average, I think. But at a certain point, you do have to recognize, okay, this guy's doing something right. Whereas Derrick Henry, he had, I think, 65, 66 on 20 carries. So he's only averaging a little over 3 yards per carry, which is not something that you can sustainably do in a playoff game and really expect to win. So I think that Henry absolutely underperformed. Coming off of that injury, that metal plate in his foot, clearly was not as explosive, not as fast as he normally was, not as dominant as all. I'm not really going to say I'm worried about him. I think, this is really just Russ coming back for one game, so I'm not too worried about it, but I do think that at a certain point, you do have to kind of say, even though this is our guy going forward, obviously I'm not saying start Donta Foreman next year over Derrick Henry, but for this game, I do believe that even if there is a better running back, you do have to go with the guy that's maybe a little hot on that day if your big guy's a little slow. So I think they should have done that here, but, Joe Burrow did what Joe Burrow does. Evan McPherson, as you said, his legend was born on that amazing kick and everything he said in the sidelines before that. So I think it was a good game, but I am a little disappointed in the Titans, honestly.
No, the fact that he called it, I think probably was one of the more entertaining storylines to come out of that particular game.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that as he walked onto the field, he said, "Guess we're going to the AFC Championship." Just the swagger from a rookie kicker. I was really impressed. I thought he was an absolute delight, and he's a personality that you don't want to hear from the kicker normally, but I'm okay with hearing the kicker in this case. I don't think we've had Brabadu from the kicker. The kicker's typically, I feel like, a quiet position. The kickers are like, please don't let the game come down to me.
Yeah.
And McPherson was like, all right, I'm ready. Let's do this. I love that about him. So to get back to your point about the Titans using Foreman versus Henry, Foreman had 66 yards on 4 carries. But do you know how long his longest was?
It was 60, I think. It was 55 or 60 or something like that.
He had the longest of 45.
40, so okay, 45.
A little bit of an outlier there. The other two were not nearly as long. So I do agree that I personally would have used Foreman over Henry in that particular position, and used Henry honestly more as a threat of the running game and only ran him if I felt really confident that he could pick something up. But I would have definitely used Foreman because Foreman on those 4 attempts and that because of that 45 longest run. He actually led the Titans in rushing yards on 4 attempts, which is kind of impressive when you think about it. He actually led the entire game in rushing yards. His 66 were more than Joe Mixon's 54, and he's the leading rusher for the Bengals. So that was kind of an interesting fact. I know you're a huge fan of Tannehill, but this game made me kind of worried about Tannehill, honestly. Like, he just did not look well or right. I really don't know what it was. I know that, it's not 100, not some of those interceptions were not 100% on him, but I am a little worried that he took the Titans out of the game, arguably.
I think the whole offense was off, and Tannehill was obviously a huge part of that. He played very poorly, but I do think that every quarterback's going to have a bad game. Now, whether or not this is a bad game, that's he can't do it in the playoffs or whatever. Like the moment's too big for him, or it's just a bad game. It happens. We'll have to find out later on next year once we see. I'm sure we'll see the Titans, maybe not as the 1 seed again, but they will be back in the playoffs, I think. So we can see then what Ryan Tannehill really has in him and what he can do on the field in the playoffs. He hasn't had a whole lot of experience in the playoffs up until this point. So I do think that next year we will know if you should really be concerned about Ryan Tannehill in the playoffs. Maybe he comes out and performs big, and we can chalk this game up to, it's kind of a fluke. Derrick Henry coming back threw off the offense. They didn't really know
It
how to run
really
him.
did.
It,
I
it
think
was
I think that
weird.
might be the craziest part, is that he's such a dynamic force when,
Mhm.
in past seasons when he's played, and everyone when he went down was like, this is it. This is the end of the Titans, that they found the first seed. Do you think that they should have? I mean, I know we already talked about having Foreman. Do you think they shouldn't have even played Henry?
I mean, hindsight, yes, you shouldn't have played
Yeah,
him.
no, that's fair. It's
Ahead
definitely a
of
hindsight
time,
play.
absolutely. I would have, if they would have not played Derrick Henry, I think they would get a lot more flack for not playing him than playing him and seeing him do poorly.
Yeah, no, they should have been a lot lighter, I think, but we already talked about that.
I think they
But
should have benched him after the half, honestly. They should have given him a half, and if he couldn't figure out anything up until that point, you are in the playoff games. This is where you have to throw everything at the wall. I mean, even if it means benching your big guy, your star player, if he's not performing well, you have to win the game. It doesn't matter who wins the game, you just got to win it. So you got to take him out, put Donta Foreman in, see if he can do anything. I mean, heck, even, do you bench Ryan Tannehill at some point if he's
no,
throwing three interceptions?
unfortunately, I don't think that they have someone who, if Tannehill is the Derrick Henry to Tannehill, I don't think they have a Foreman.
I don't think they have a very good backup. But you can either go with a guy that's going to throw 3 picks in the game, or you can go with a guy who's a backup. But maybe he's feeling hot that particular day. Like, it doesn't matter
I
how you win the
I
game,
think
but
I think it's a little bit different for running backs, because I do think that they're a little bit more interchangeable than the quarterback. Like, if you want to go to Logan Woodside, that's you. But I think if you think that they're going to get flack for the usage rate of Henry, I think they're going to get a lot more if they take out Tannehill and put in Logan Woodside.
yeah, I mean, he just wasn't able to do anything. A.J. Brown, leading receiver, he had 142 yards and a
AJ Brown
touchdown.
went off. Good
He
lord.
was crazy. Julio looked pretty decent. He had 62 yards and 6 receptions. Other than that, though, nobody else really did anything. So, I mean, this is kind of what we said would happen when Julio got traded over to the Titans, right? It was going to be the Julio and AJ Brown show, and they haven't really shown that so far this year. I do think that after the Derrick Henry injury happened, he goes out. A lot of people are saying, oh, this is the end for the Titans, right? Honestly, if you had to give me the Titans with Derrick Henry pre-injury or the Titans of Derrick Henry towards the end of the season, without Derrick Henry towards the end of the season, I'm going to take the ones without Derrick Henry towards the end of the season. I honestly think they were better without Derrick Henry towards the end there. So I don't know if, maybe that's a telling thing. Derrick Henry is obviously a great running back, but are you, I'm not going to say better off without him. I'm not saying you should trade him or anything, but maybe next year, do you use him less in the hopes of keeping him healthier till later in the postseason? Obviously, we've talked about multiple times, oh, this guy has to be crazy durable because they run him 30 times a game. So maybe next year it's a different strategy. If maybe you use him 10 times less, let Tannehill throw more, let AJ Brown and Julio, even if Tannehill's having a bad game, kind of carry him a little bit. I still believe in Tannehill. I'm not worried about him, at least not in the regular season, I should say. Postseason still to be seen, but I do think that this is an extremely dynamic team that has a lot of potential in the run and pass game.
Yeah, no, the Titans need to adopt a Browns double-headed monster, two-headed monster system to preserve Derrick Henry because I am genuinely worried. I believe he just signed that really big contract too, so the timing could not be worse on this. And it may, like, between Tannehill's massive contract and Henry's massive contract, I genuinely think we could see some serious problems for the Titans in the foreseeable future from a cap perspective because you need those guys to perform. And if Tannehill's not performing in the big spots and Derrick Henry, we see him regress because of the injury, that's a cause for concern. So I am a little bit worried about the Titans. I do want to note one last thing. This was actually Ryan Tannehill's worst season by quarterback rating, not QBR. I know you're not a huge proponent of QBR, Tony, but quarterback rating. This is his worst season in Tennessee by a country mile. He has 117 in his first year with the Titans. That was back in 2019. And then in 2020, he was a 106.5, and he was an 89.6 in the regular season. So that's not even counting his horrendous playoff performance.
So passer rating?
Yeah, passer rating.
Okay.
So, not good. Not
yeah,
good.
not
so
great.
I'm a little concerned.
We'll see how it. If he can come back with Derrick Henry back, even if Derrick Henry is not having a great game, you at least have to acknowledge that he's there. And that changes the defense, as we've seen. Without Derrick Henry, this suddenly becomes a pretty one-dimensional team, which obviously it was fairly one-dimensional as a running team before. When he goes down, now everybody's thinking, well, you run this guy 30 times a game, you probably don't have much of a backup, do you? So then they're just going to go to the pass game. So I think Tannehill did decently well, given that everybody knew they were going to throw more than they were going to run after Henry went down. So I'm not super worried about him. We'll see how he does next year when Henry comes back, because at this point, the whole league has seen that, it's Derrick Henry. You have to respect him. He's going to be great. Okay. But now we've seen that he went down. This team can still win without him. Maybe they know that, and they're going to go, well, we're going to run and we're going to pass. We're not really going to do, necessarily dominant one or the other. That's really going to mess with a lot of defenses. So this team could very well be dominant again next year.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I think part of the problem, though, is that, like you said, Tannehill had a worse season because defenses played them differently. If Derrick Henry does come back and doesn't look the same, we're going to see a very similar look, I think, defensively for the Titans. So
yeah, we'll see.
I think it's a little concerning. I also do want to say before we're going to move on to the next game because we spent probably a little bit too much time on Titans Bengals. I think that something's interesting is that you said the Titans got better without Derrick Henry. I do want to say that they got better not because of the offense getting better, but because of the defense getting significantly better. What do you think about that?
I mean, the whole team has to get better. Every part of it has to get better for the entire team to look better. If you're just relying on the offense and the defense is pretty poor, I mean, we've seen time and time again with the Titans over the past couple of years, doesn't matter how good your offense is, if your defense is going to allow 30, 35 points a game, eventually you will lose in the playoffs against these great teams. So this was certainly their best year, their best chance of making it to the Super Bowl with that defense that they have this year, especially towards the end. Yeah. So if they can sustain the defense, I'm not worried about the offense.
Yeah, no, that's fair. All right, let's go on to the next game, which may actually kill Tony a little bit. As you can see on the screen right there, he is a Green Bay Packers fan. So we may go through this one quickly. If you want to know why we go through it in about 30 seconds, it's because it crushed Tony. But so we have the 49ers with arguably the upset of the playoffs, the 6 seed beating the 1 seed, 13-10 on the road in Lambeau. Tony, the Packers were 8-0 at home this season, and their first loss at home ends up being their last loss at home. This is a very disappointing season. Do you have some initial thoughts on this? Do you sort of thing you want to specifically vent about?
How our special teams coordinator still has a job is beyond me. Packers Twitter has been keeping a running count of the days that he has not been fired yet. There's not one person that doesn't want him. There's not one person that wants him in Green Bay. I mean, this dude, I don't think he could coach high school football. He is truly the worst coach I have ever seen for any team of any sport in my entire life. This is ridiculous. We've been calling it all year. If the Packers are going to lose a big game, it's going to be because of the special teams. And it certainly was. A lot of people like to throw Aaron the blame on this one and the offense the blame on this one, and I am out on that take. He wasn't perfect, He does need some blame. I'm not saying he's completely, blame free or whatever. He did have a 69% completion percentage for 225 yards. He should have had a touchdown on that Aaron Jones long reception. I will never, for the rest of my life, understand how a $10 million running back did not get that touchdown with every angle you could ever want as a receiver going to the end zone. And beyond that, I will never understand why he tried to cut left instead of running it out of bounds as the time's running down and we only have one
Oh,
timeout.
pain.
It was just abhorrent to watch. The whole offense was not doing anything properly. And in fairness, Rodgers did really need to diversify who he was throwing to. He threw it to Devontae Adams at least 80% of his throws. And there were quite a few times where like Lazard would be running 10 yards, little 10 yards closer, but Rodgers would still try to force it into double coverage to Adams. Now, yes, a lot of the time that does work, but it's not going to work every time. And at some point, you do have to take the open man. So diversify a little bit. You wanted Cobb so bad. You only threw it to him once. What are you doing? But it was just the real blame goes to special teams. Yes, the offense had some flaws. The defense was phenomenal. The
I was gonna say
defense.
the defense should be feeling the most gypped of anyone on that team
Yeah,
right now. That
for once.
performance.
For once, it's not the defense's fault. It's amazing. Now it's the special teams' fault. So, I mean, it was just awful to watch. Like to stop that Niners offense and not allow them to get a single touchdown is amazing for that defense to do. I do want to credit them because they
100%.
have been phenomenal. As Brady has shown us throughout his career, you don't need an explosive offense if your defense doesn't give up a lot of points. So I do think the offense did enough to win given what the defense did. But the special teams, you gave up 10 points there. You gave up a blocked field goal. Obviously, you gave up that touchdown on the blocked punt, and then the cherry on the cake or the cherry on top is going to be you
Oh,
only had 10 guys out there on
yeah,
that final Robbie Gould field goal kick.
that
Now
was a special one. That was a
I,
treat from hell
I'm
if you're a
not
Packers fan.
saying that if you throw one more guy out there, suddenly it's blocked. Likely, it doesn't change anything if you throw one more guy out there.
It's just a testament to
But
truly
it
how
just
horrendous.
shows how like we can't even manage to field the proper guys. I don't understand. Like if I'm Matt LaFleur, honestly, I would have fired this guy halfway through the season. Like once I saw that we started out 32nd and didn't get any better, and if anything, the gap between us and 31 got wider. Like we weren't just the worst; we were worst by a lot. It
Yeah,
wasn't even close. So this
horrible.
guy should have been fired forever ago. I don't usually like to,
I hate calling for firings. Like it doesn't
don't
make me
like
feel
calling for
good.
firings. Yeah, I don't want to. In a perfect world, I'd like everybody to keep the job because everybody's doing great at it. But at a certain point, you suck. You do so bad at your job that I have to. Everybody wants this guy gone because you've shown that you're not competent enough to do this. There's a lot of head coach openings. If anybody wants our special teams coordinator, please take him. You'll go 0-17 for the rest of your life.
No one's taking. Yeah, no one. I was gonna say nobody wants that guy. Yeah, no. I mean, like, look at it. Like, I specifically said on last week's show, I would take the Packers to win. I would take the 49ers to cover, and here's why: special teams. The 49ers defense should be able to frustrate the Packers at the line of scrimmage. The 49ers offense should be able to chew up enough clock and put up points on a poor rushing defense. The rushing defense honestly kind of outplayed my expectations. Like the Packers defense really did keep the Packers in that game. But it's like Tony said, the Packers ranked 32nd in special teams DVOA. They are worse than Jacksonville, than Denver, than Miami, than the Chargers. Interestingly enough, Tampa Bay, and then San Francisco. Those are the teams that are above them. But the Packers are the only team who's minus 5.2%. That's it. They are so bad at special teams. It's just not funny. I think they are arguably a historically bad team because they stopped a historically great Packers team from
Mm-hmm.
finally making it to a Super Bowl. Because I do genuinely believe that if we see Packers Rams this weekend instead of Rams 49ers, Packers can probably just book a trip to SoFi. I mean, they already did it once, right? They already beat the Rams at home in Lambeau once.
Well, I mean,
So
in fairness, we beat the Niners in the Niner Stadium once.
yeah, I think it's different, and this is something I want to run by you. I believe in the Packers, the Packers only Super Bowl with Rodgers. They did it as a wild card team, yes.
Yeah, they were the 6th seed.
So they went. They would have had to have gone on the road for all of their games, or realistically, yeah, they would have been the sixth
Yeah.
seed. It was only six at that time, so they went on the road for all their games, and they played in dome stadiums. Do you
Yep.
think Lambeau had an adverse effect on this Packers offense?
No, I think
No.
Lambeau had an adverse effect on the Niners offense. If you were to watching the game, like between the second and fourth quarters, the Niners were a fairly decent offense. Like obviously they didn't score any points, but they were moving the ball a little better. In that first quarter, I'm pretty sure for the entire quarter, Jimmy G threw 6 or 7 balls that were good balls, and they went right through the receiver's hands, Kittle included, on one that would have been like a 75-yard ball. He was like a 15-yard in cut, and he was wide open. There was nobody covering this guy, and it went right through his hands. And I think that's because of the weather. So I do think that for a little bit there, it really benefited the Packers. I thought it would go for the whole game. Jimmy G was like 0 of 8 or something, and it wasn't
He was
really on him.
11 of 19 for the game.
Yeah, once like that first ball was caught, then they were good. They just had to catch one. But before that, man, it was tough to watch. I'd imagine if you're a Niners fan, because it was like trying to catch a bar of soap for these guys. They just weren't used to it. The one thing that I expected a lot more of that I didn't really see is slipping. It didn't really look like I expected the Packers to be fine. The Packers know the right cleats to use when it's cold and when the ground's hard. Opposing teams that especially come from warm weather or come from dome stadiums, they don't really know kind of how to wear cleats for different surfaces, I guess, because we use real grass and we use, obviously we're open, so it freezes over. It gets really hard. One of the things people don't think about is you have to have the right cleats. If you don't have the right cleats, you're going to slip and fall. It happens quite a lot, actually, at Lambeau in the winter. And I didn't really see that from the Niners. They did a really, really good job of making sure all their equipment is up to par. So they were able to run clean routes, and that's usually something we could take advantage of. They'll slip, and we can usually get a free pick or something, which we should have had like 3 pick sixes on Jimmy G during this game, which was really, really frustrating to watch. But, I can't really yell at the defense. They didn't allow any points. So it is what it is. I don't know what's going to happen with Rodgers. If you see anything on Twitter, I've seen so many things on Twitter talking about how Rodgers has told his inner circle. Rodgers' inner circle doesn't use social media, and they don't talk to the media at all. So if you see that and you say, oh, Rodgers has told his inner circle, that person has no idea what they're talking about because he's not going to tell anybody that would leak anything.
Yeah, I was going to say the only true source that we can trust is the Pat McAfee show, because Rodgers did reveal that he would come down to Indianapolis in person to reveal to Pat McAfee and his gang over there his decision, which will be fascinating. The McAfee show is already worth tuning into, so it'll make it a little bit better. I know that to quickly harp on the social media thing, I did see in a press conference that Rodgers hopes that Nathaniel Hackett, the Packers offensive coordinator, wouldn't go anywhere unless he went somewhere, and Hackett did take the Broncos job. So makes a very interesting offseason after a historically great regular season for Rodgers that much more interesting. It'll be the second offseason in a row dominated by Aaron Rodgers. So that'll be a very fun thing to follow the offseason.
Yeah. Back-to-back MVPs. We'll see what he does.
Let's move to Rams Buccaneers. It was a boring game, honestly, and then it got really interesting. The Rams led, I believe, 27-3, and Tampa Bay was able to come right back into the game, make it 27-7. And the Rams, the only point they scored in the fourth quarter was a field goal that sealed the deal and snatched the game, snatched victory from the jaws of overtime. Which, if we get to overtime, there's no guarantee
Bucks win that game.
Yeah,
Bucks win that game 100%.
I feel pretty good about saying that. Is there any takeaway from this? I mean, obviously, it's that the Rams can be world beaters when they don't turn the ball over, and then as soon as they turn the ball over, that team just dies a little bit.
Yep.
Not a whole lot else to say, I guess.
All I really have to say on that is the one thing that we were really talking about last week, right, was going into this game, what did we say? Matthew Stafford can't turn the ball over, because that's been the story of this year. If Matthew Stafford doesn't turn the ball over, this is going to be, probably a clean sweep game for the Rams. And then he didn't turn the ball over, and it looked like it was going to be. But the one thing we didn't talk about was, yes, he can't turn the ball over, but neither can all you other idiots. You can't fumble every other drive. So I don't think that, anybody that watched the game obviously knows that the Bucs didn't claw their way back in because the Bucs were suddenly great. The Bucs clawed their way back in because the Rams suddenly were just giving them the ball every single drive they had. It was really like they were trying to hold a stick of butter. It looked like it would just, squirt right out onto the field anytime anybody got the ball. It was a fumble. It was amazing to watch. I don't think it happens again. I think it's a massive fluke. So I will say again, and I will, revise my statement. If the Rams
In
cannot,
general.
if the Rams in general cannot turn over the ball in any way, shape, or form, they should clean sweep this game.
Yeah, so I do want to read you the play log off of ESPN for the
Mm-hmm.
second half. So it opens punt Rams, punt Buccaneers, touchdown Rams, field goal Buccaneers. At this point, it is 27-6.
Mm-hmm.
Fumble Rams, touchdown Bucks, punt Rams, fumble Bucks, fumble Rams. That's just magical. 2 fumbles back to back.
Yep.
Turnover on downs by the Buccaneers, missed field goal by the Rams, downs by Buccaneers, punt by Rams, touchdown Bucks, fumble Rams, touchdown Buccaneers, field goal Rams. I had a heart attack watching that game as someone who was like, the Rams can win the Super Bowl, and I picked the Rams in this one. It's just like, oh
Mm-hmm.
my God, they're gonna do it. Brady's gonna do it. Brady's gonna just will them to victory in overtime, and we're gonna laugh at the Rams. But
Yeah.
you know what? They advanced to the heroics of like I said, of Stafford and Cooper Kupp. Although, funny enough, their first play on the drive where they tried to kick a field goal, I believe Stafford nearly fumbled the ball after he got sacked by Ndamukong Suh and
Yeah,
threw
it
the
was
ball.
close.
So and he saw the ball on the ground and like scooped it in like
Yeah.
that, and so very close to that game being a Buccaneers win because the Rams went for the game.
Yeah, well, what did we say? All our OG listeners from this past summer will know that as soon as Matthew Stafford was traded to the Rams, we pretty much proclaimed Rams are going to win the Super Bowl. All they needed was a quarterback, and we were both in that Matthew Stafford was going to
All
be the
in.
guy that could pull this team out and into the Super Bowl. And honestly, I will say it's way more impressive because this defense is not
Not
that
as good. No, they're
not
not.
nearly as good. If you look at lineups overall, this defense is actually 15th in the league. This defense is worse overall than Seattle Seahawks.
Which is a
So,
take.
which is a take, but apparently it's a true one. So, as this defense is pretty good, I think over this postseason they've showed that they are decent overall, but they are not nearly what they were last year, and they are not nearly what they have been in years past. So I do think if they win this Super Bowl, it's not going to be the Rams of the past couple years where it's the offense could get it done, but the defense is really going to hold them in this game. It's going to have to be the offense that's going to have to score a lot of points.
Yeah, no, I mean we saw with that Buccaneers game. The Buccaneers, like credit to Brady, they did score points to
Mm-hmm.
narrow the gap. Like, you need the turnovers and they need to be able to score the points. I
Yeah.
am looking at the OG bracket we did in the summer for our touchdown rundown fans. You can
Mm-hmm.
go find that on Spotify, I believe. But I'm looking at a bracket right now that's Rams Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And we're
Yep.
this close to it coming true. And
Yeah.
the amount of pats on the back I will be giving myself will be ridiculous if that
Oh,
comes
yeah.
true. My arm may fall off.
Because that's what the model has, right? The model's taking Rams Chiefs as well.
It is indeed, yeah.
Perfect.
It's pretty confident in that one, so that'll be.
Well,
that'll
my
be a
Titans
fun one.
Packers one has fallen apart at this
Whew.
point.
Yeah, no,
But
what
I
are the
still
odds?
have this Rams Chiefs ones in the back burner from the summer.
Yeah, no, really. We get to the amount of back padding. The model in the offseason did have Bills Rams
Yeah.
for the Super Bowl. Again, this close, 13 seconds to that coming true. That would have been crazy if that one
What a
came
game.
true. No, and speaking of that game, let's transition over to it. It's our last game of the divisional round breakdown. So yeah, I mean, this one is crazy. And if you want to know just how crazy it was, you need only look at ESPN's win probability because it's trending towards Chiefs, and then it's Chiefs 99, Bills 99, Chiefs 99, Bills 99, Chiefs 99, Bills 99, 99, 99, and you get to overtime and it just goes Chiefs 100.
Yep.
So that one was just a crazy one to watch. 13 seconds left. I mean, who sees that coming?
That's less time than Dak Prescott's draw play. That was 14 seconds. So
Oh
just
my
for a
God.
reference as to how impressive that really is, that's how, he went like what? It's like
20
40
yards.
He was like what, 45, 50 yards or something to get in a field goal range, and the same time it took Dak to run 14, 15 yards.
Nope. The Chiefs saved their season in the time it took Dak to blow their season.
Yeah, it was crazy to watch this game. I do think, and I know that there's been a lot of different opinions on this. There's been a lot of people saying it's pretty much 50-50 from what I've seen. There's people that are saying overtime rules are good as they are, don't need to be changed. There's people that are saying we do need to change them. It's not fair. I personally think that they should be changed. I think at the very least, it should just be an extra quarter, even if it's just a 10-minute quarter instead of a 15-minute quarter. I think it should be a normal quarter. If the first team goes down the field and scores, give it to the second team. I mean, at least give them a chance to score. In games like this, where it's that final quarter is pretty much just offense scores, offense scores, offense scores. I think they would have got better ratings if this goes into overtime and they play out that full, extra quarter, if you will. I think the ratings would have just kept climbing and climbing because it would have been even better and better. So I think that it needs to be changed personally, but we'll see what happens with it. Maybe this offseason is going to be the time where it finally does something happen.
Yeah, to illustrate the 50-50 nature of this, I am on the team that says don't change the overtime rules. And I have a couple of reasons for this. So according to Louis Riddick, ESPN's Louis Riddick, there have been 163 overtime games under the current overtime rules of the NFL. Of those 163, only 35 end in one possession. So that's about 22%, a little under 22%. So in my opinion, if 78% of NFL teams can stop the opposing team from scoring, that is just genuinely on you. And according to StatHead's Drive Finder, 272 games played this season, 23%, only 23% of drives converted into a touchdown. So, that matters.
I will say that my big reasoning for it is in the postseason, the stats for that actually look extremely different. Tom and I have talked about this extensively over this past week.
Yeah, we definitely have.
And in the postseason, there have been 11 overtimes since the enactment of this rule back in 2012, I believe it was, when it was in the postseason. And since then, those 11 games, the team that won the coin toss won 10 of them. So it's 10-1 if you win the coin toss, and the only one that was a loss was that Saints-Rams
not at all controversial.
Awful pass interference non-call that was almost enough for them to replay that entire, remainder of that game. That's how bad it was. So I think that one is so bogus. I would almost even toss that. So it pretty much should be 11-0. The teams have won if they've won the coin toss. I think 7 of them have won on the very first touchdown, that first drive. So I think at the very least in the playoffs, it should be changed. I would like to see it changed overall. I still honestly think that 20 whatever percent's too high for the other team to not even just have a chance to come back.
No, and I do agree that if you do need to make a change, I think it should be, kind of playing an extra quarter. Mm-hmm. So I can't take the credit for this one, but Take Your Eye Off the Ball 2.0. It's Pat Kerwin's book. I absolutely love this book, but his recommendation for overtime is that what should happen is that teams need to change. So basically, you know how the first quarter rolls into the second quarter?
Yeah.
That's his recommendation, basically. So that, like, let's say Team A has the ball in the 40, play it like an extra quarter and see what the score is at the end of the extra quarter, and then maybe you can kind of look towards an overtime, like a sudden death overtime or something more extreme. But like play it like the fifth quarter. Maybe you add some timeouts to kind of refresh that, but play it like the fifth quarter, which that would probably be the only modification to the overtime rules that I would like to see.
Yeah, it's definitely there. I have seen quite a few different ideas that people have had. I've seen some ideas that even NFL teams have pitched, and there are some of them that I think are really dumb and way too much. I think it was like last year or 2 years ago where was it the Ravens that came out and was like, they said instead of the coin toss, one team gets to pick the yard line that the ball goes on, and the other team gets to pick if they're offense or defense. I think that is really stupid. It's too complicated. I'm out on that one. One that I saw that was kind of interesting. I know Tom does not like this one. I think it would be cool.
No, don't say it. Don't say it on air.
Yes, I'm saying it on air. I'm going to say it on air.
Don't do it.
The kicker battle.
It's so bad.
The kicker battle. Each kicker lines up on the 20, and you just keep backing them up until one misses at a certain yardage and the other makes it at that yardage. I think that would be electric. It would add a lot of value to the kicker position, which honestly the kicker position already should have a lot of value, and it does for most teams, but it would just make the kicker that much important to secure it in the overtime. I don't think that's not my favorite one, but I do think it would be fun. I do like the idea of the extra quarter a lot more, but if we got to pick an unusual one, it's like a shootout. Soccer has it, hockey has it. Why not have it for football?
Yeah, but that's like, so the complaint from hockey fans is that you end a hockey game by not playing hockey. It's like in basketball, if you were like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to have a slam dunk competition, and that will determine who wins the NBA Finals. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants a slam dunk competition for
I mean, you're still
overtime.
playing football. The
It's
kicking is
not
an aspect of
football,
football.
but it's not full football.
Well,
If
it's
you're
not
going to change
full
it,
football,
if
but
you're gonna change it to the kicker battle, just leave it the way it is. I genuinely think that the way it is a lot better than a kicker
well,
battle.
the only reason they would want to do that is because I think they are injury conscious, and playing an extra quarter, uh, would probably spike injuries. At that point, those guys have played a full 60 minutes. I don't think it would spike it that much, but like that's the reason they haven't gone to the college rules is because then who knows how many quarters you would play, and these guys simply cannot play 5 overtimes. It just would not happen. It wouldn't work. You'd be losing a lot of guys at that point. But if they want to go super injury conscious, you would probably never have an injury doing the kicker battle. It would be fun to watch. I'm quite the fan of kicks, so I
Can
do
you
think that would
imagine?
be so fun. Is if you
Can,
go in and you walk out 2 guys, that would be so fun. I'd love
yeah, can
that.
you imagine if you think people hate kickers now? Imagine imagine the feeling when a kicker
Yeah,
loses
but
you
that's you just
overtime.
got to have a good kicker. You got to have a versatile kicker that can kick, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, up to maybe 55, 60 yards.
If that situation happens, are the Ravens playing for overtime every single game?
I mean, they could. But I mean, like Justin Tucker would be a tremendous weapon to have. So it adds
I
so
think
much value to that position.
I think kickers might get paid more, like infinitely more than they already are. I
Yeah,
think. Can you imagine how much people would pay for Justin Tucker? That dude would just make so much
they should
money
have a punt, pass, and kick contest. Pick one guy.
for Pro Bowl for the Pro Bowl.
No, for overtime. Punt,
Oh
pass, and kick
God,
competition.
no. Okay.
No, that would be a
Um,
bad one. I'm out on that one. That was a joke.
okay, but one recommendation we did talk about this week, Tony. I kind of like it now. I didn't like it originally because I didn't think it makes it that much more complicated. But you said let's keep the overtime rules as they are, but to end a game, the team needs to score a 2-point conversion. And I'm kind of a
Yeah.
fan of that. I kind of like that take now.
Oh, you hated
Um,
that. So when I originally suggested that, you hated that so much. But yeah, I
okay,
that
after
would be
hearing the alternative of the kicker off, if we are going to make a change to the playoff format, that seems like the best playoff change
if
format
we
change.
that would be the smallest change that I would like to see possible is like yes, you can't just walk off. Like if you were to score a touchdown, then the you could either kick the field goal and the other team gets the ball. If they don't score, at that point you would win. Or you could go for 2. If you make it, you automatically win. If you don't, you're at 6. Well, then kind of the trade-off of that was be either you win, you have 6, and if the other team goes down and scores and kicks the field goal and gets 7, then they win. So that would be kind of that was the basis for that one that I like to see.
Yeah, no, I like that. I've grown to like that one a lot more.
Nice,
I
good to
still
know.
I
Well,
still don't I still don't think we need to change it, but if we have to change it, that would be a good change, I think.
I would like to change it to at least that. Ideally,
Okay.
just play it an extra quarter. I think that would be the most fair. And I think your ratings would go up. I don't know why the NFL wouldn't want to do it. Like, yes, the ratings were extremely high going into the overtime, but I do think that, if you're going back and forth for a whole nother quarter, you're only going to get more viewers. Nobody's going away from that game.
Yeah. Well, in the way that this is kind of history repeats itself is poetic almost. It rhymes, whatever you want to call it. This has come full circle because the last time there was an overtime playoff game played at Arrowhead, it was the
Hmm
Chiefs losing and petitioning for a change to the rules. To the Bills' credit, they haven't petitioned for a change in the rules yet. So
Yeah, in fairness, the
a
Bills
little
did
bit
vote
better.
against that Chiefs pitch.
Yeah, no, ironically, right?
Ironically,
Ironically,
yes.
just slight little bit of irony. Maybe should have thought about it a little bit harder. All right, so let's move on over to best loss and biggest surprise
hmm
of the divisional round. Tony, do you want to kick it off?
Yeah, I'll go. What are we going with first? Win?
Yeah, let's go win.
All right, I'm gonna take the Rams on this one. I think that it was a lot closer than I thought it would be. I was very very close to losing this one. If I would have lost this one, I wouldn't have really had a great win. But I did like the Rams coming into this game against the Bucks. I thought that the Bucks were a little too injured. They weren't going to be able to stop this more explosive Rams offense. And if Matt, if you could just hold off on the turnovers, they were going to win this game. And they almost didn't because of turnovers, but they did.
Yeah, no, they almost did.
hmm
I'm gonna do my win. I don't know if it really counts as a win. I did not have a great playoff weekend. I think I went 2-2 maybe. But I'm gonna count my win as the 49ers because I called exactly what happened, and then it was just like, but the Packers will win because Aaron Rodgers, and they didn't. So I'm counting it as a win because as close as I'm getting to it, actually a good win. All right, how about our loss?
Loss. I have to go with the Packers.
Yeah, you do.
I special teams kind of killed it. I think the offense did enough. I think the defense did phenomenal. Special teams just gave it away, but not really surprised. We've been calling it all year. It's just a matter of win.
Yeah. My loss is going to be the Titans because I believe I did end up taking the Titans, and like it looked really good. And one thing I do want to say is if they had just kicked the extra point and the game played out basically the exact same, they would have won. So
Yeah,
I know why they went for it. I know the analytics say to go for it, but
doesn't work all the
that's
time.
just great hindsight look.
Yep.
All right, what was the biggest surprise?
The biggest surprise for me was I got to go with the Bengals. I thought Titans were going to the Super Bowl. Granted, I thought Packers were going to the Super Bowl as well, but Bengals really came out and they really showed up. This wasn't a blowout win by any means, but it was a win that was enough.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to frame it. My surprise is the Bills because I picked the Bills to win.
Yeah.
And then they almost did, and I almost felt really good about picking against Mahomes. But good Lord, if the Chiefs lose to the Bengals, I will not think that the Chiefs have lost the Super Bowl until somebody else is on the platform. Like the Chiefs could literally lose to the Bengals, and I would expect to see them in the Super Bowl. It would be a 3-team Super Bowl. That's just how unkillable the Chiefs feel now.
No, this was a tremendous turnaround from, early on in the season. What were we talking about? We were talking
Chiefs
about
missed
how
the playoffs.
the
Oh my
Chiefs are
God.
going to, miss the playoffs. Are they even going to make it in as a wild
They
card?
won't even win the division.
No, now they're at the 2 seed, and they're about to likely crush the
probably play the
Bengals and
Super Bowl.
play against probably the Rams in the Super Bowl. So, yeah, we'll see what happens there. But good Lord, this team's defense had a massive turnaround, which is extremely impressive. Credit to them. But I do want to throw out there, this is something that I threw this graphic into the group chat the other day just to kind of test the waters with it a little bit. But now that the Chiefs have, gone to this championship game, Andy Reid has taken two different teams to 4 straight conference championships. He was, of course, the Eagles years ago, and now the Chiefs. When does Andy Reid get into the GOAT conversation? Not that he is the GOAT, but when does he get into the conversation?
Oh, this is really hard to say because he does have it's kind of the same reason people are a little bit unhappy with LeBron's finals record is that he gets to the finals and then just doesn't win finals, whereas Michael Jordan is 6-0. So I feel like that's going to be against him, whereas Belichick has a really good Super Bowl record and a really good conference championship record.
Yeah.
Whereas Reid doesn't have that same really good record. So I think that harms him. But if he has Patrick Mahomes, he's going to start being in the GOAT conversation in a couple of years when they have 6 straight Super Bowls or something.
Yeah. So are we saying not this year? Let's assume they win this championship. Let's assume they get to the Super Bowl. I don't know. We'll say pre-Super Bowl. Pre-Super Bowl, is he in the conversation? If they win it, is he in the conversation?
Ooh, that's really good. It's hard. I want to say he's entering the conversation, right? We're in a chat room and it's X entered the chat.
Yeah.
I think he's entering the chat. He's making some noise. I think he's probably one of the most brilliant offensive minds in the history of the game. But because of the time management thing, the record going against him, he's not there yet. Give him
he could get there.
At 3 Super Bowls, he starts entering unprecedented, historically great territory. So
yeah, absolutely. I think he's up there with who we got: Belichick, Lombardi. Who else are we gonna put up there?
I like Tomlin for stability.
I do think that Tomlin's the guy that he's won 2, right? 2 Super Bowls?
Yeah, I think he's won 2.
Yeah, he's won 2 Super Bowls.
So he doesn't have record.
Yeah, he doesn't have a crazy good Super Bowl. He doesn't have a lot of Super Bowls or whatever. He has 2, which is still really good, but he doesn't have, like Belichick does. But he's never had a losing season.
And I was gonna say, look at the team that made the playoffs right under the Chiefs.
Yeah.
That team is horrible, and they made the playoffs.
Tomlin is kind of the wild card in the conversation right now. He's a guy that not a lot of people would think about putting in there, but I agree. I do think that he should be in that conversation right now just because he's so consistently good.
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard to be consistently good. I mean, that's just I feel like is really underrated.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
All right, let's move on to our pick'em where I am the champion. that's why I have the hat. Got to flex that a little bit. Sorry, Tony, but I am the champion picker. But we will do this again next year. So I'll win. I'll have 2 hats then, I guess.
Well, let's not forget at the beginning of the season, I was like 7 games ahead. I don't know what happened, but the
What good
league
did it?
decided
What good did it do
to
you?
kill me.
Yeah, no, the league had a conspiracy, I guess, and they wanted me to win. So
I guess
I
they
got
did
the
a good
Lions hat.
job.
Yeah, no, I mean, we could show you the chart, but I don't want to embarrass Tony with how just great I was in the second half. I kid. I was not that great. I wasn't awful. That was really what
No,
happened
I
too.
was awful.
I wasn't awful. Okay, so let's look at the first game, Cincinnati at Kansas City. I was really surprised by the spread on this one, considering that Cincinnati had the win last time these two teams played. Kansas City is a 7-point favorite with the over/under being 54.5. I'm taking the Chiefs here, but I am going to have the Bengals cover. Um, the Chiefs are, in my opinion, the best offense left in the playoffs, and I think that their defense can function very similarly to the Titans, where they can get a lot of pressure and sack Joe Burrow.
Mhm.
But this game is going to be a good one because I do think Burrow can. I don't think he's going to play it like Josh Allen, but I think that he is going to have a really good game.
Oh, I want to do it, Tom.
Do
I want
it.
to take Cincy so bad.
Do it. You can do it. Nothing's stopping you.
I know I can't do it though.
You
Not after that
can.
Mahomes performance last week. The Bills do have a much better passing defense than the Bengals have had. Yes, it's the playoffs, so regular season, I don't care, but historically, they do have a significantly better defense. So that should be kind of a concerning point for the Bengals, especially against this explosive team. Yes, they did force 3 interceptions on Tannehill. They also
That's
did allow,
also
you know,
Tannehill.
they also allowed 220 yards on 15 completions, which is just under 15 yards per completion. That's about 14.9. So it was kind of like the secondary was the Trevon Diggs secondaries. It was either a pick or it was giving up a massive gain all the time. So if they can give that up to Tannehill, then they could very easily push 20 plus yards per completion to Mahomes over here. And I do think that Burrow he's really good. I don't think he's going to play quite like Josh Allen did, but I do think that he is an electric guy, and especially throwing to Jamar, I do think this game should be absolute fireworks. I'm going to take the Chiefs to win it. I'm also going to take the Bengals to cover, and I'm going to hammer the over.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, if Bills Chiefs game of the year, Chiefs Bengals could be game of the year part 2. Like
I mean, I think I would hammer the over if this was 70 plus.
I'm not going to do it 70, but I think 54.5. It's like you start looking at it like, like
I mean,
this
70,
feels
that's only
it feels
35
too
points
it
per
feels
team.
too
I feel
easy.
like that is very doable this game. This is going to be
No,
the battle
that's
of the
fair.
offenses, I think.
No, that's definitely true. Let's go to a game where the score is probably going to be a little bit lower. We have the San Francisco 49ers. They take on the Los Angeles Rams to become champion of the NFC Conference. Of course, for both of these games, a trip to the Super Bowl is on the line. The Rams are favored by 3.5. I'm taking the 49ers to cover, which, it's going to be a very close one, but I also would take the under here. I think it's going to be very low scoring. I think that 49ers defense, we saw, I believe the Rams are what? Are they 0-2 against the 49ers or did they split?
I think 0-2.
Yeah, they're 0-2 against the 49ers, which, hey, that means nothing. We saw last year that the Buccaneers got wiped by the Saints in the regular season, and then the Buccaneers won in the playoffs. So it's hard to beat a team twice. It's even harder to beat a team 3 times.
Yeah.
So I am going to take the Rams, just how they looked in that first half against the Buccaneers, like we talked about. If the Rams in general, not just Stafford anymore, it's like the Rams running backs can just not fumble the ball,
Yeah.
then the Rams should be able to win this. But I think the 49ers are going to keep this close. I think it's going to be a very exciting game, and we could get Chiefs Rams, which would be a fantastic Super Bowl, and the Super Bowl we wanted back in 2018, or we could get a rematch of Chiefs 49ers. And I'm not going to be unhappy with either matchup.
I think that this is going to be not a blowout by any means, but I do think the Rams are going to pull away a little bit in this one. I think the Niners are a very, very good defense, but I also do think that, if we're looking at lineups, Green Bay Packers defense is 15, Rams are 16, and the Niners just got skunked by the Packers defense. They didn't score a single point on the offensive side. It was all special teams. So I do think that, while the Rams aren't going to go out and put up 50 against this Niners defense is extremely good. I think they will put up probably 2 or 3 touchdowns. I think that this is going to be an under game for sure. And I do think the Rams pull it off, but it's going to be like, 21-10 or something. Like it's going to be a decent game, not going to be high scoring, but I do think that this Rams offense is pretty explosive. I think Stafford is, he's got his eye on the prize right now, going from the Lions to the Rams. He wants to show that he is the guy that honestly I have thought he has been for his entire career. He's a bad man, as Stephen A would say, but he's
The
just been
immortal
on
Stephen A.
he's on the Lions, so he can't really show it. He was pretty much Mahomes before Mahomes. It's just like he was making those no look passes and stuff. You could find clips of them everywhere. He did it. He's done it on the Rams this year a bunch, but he didn't get a lot of coverage on it because Mahomes is Mahomes and the media loves him for some reason. So
Yeah,
I
it's
do
because he's
think,
young and exciting, and Stafford is on the Lions. Nobody likes to talk about the Lions more than they
yeah,
have
but
to.
Stafford
Not
can
me
still
though.
make so many great
Lions fan
throws.
right here. Lions fan.
Yeah, Lions
Stafford's my
fan.
boy. Lions
I'm
fan. Followed by them on
as
Twitter.
as a diehard Packers fan, and I will remain a Packers fan forever. I must say, the Lions are growing on me. The Lions are my second favorite team in the NFC North.
They are such a fun, lovable, like underdog
I
upstart
love
team.
me some Dan
Campbell,
Campbell.
yeah, Campbell might be like the coach we all laughed at, but now he's the coach. Like we see him crying after a loss. Like we're like, oh, like we just feel bad for him.
We love him.
He loves the game. His passion for the game rubs off on you.
Yeah.
You know what? They bit the Packers on the kneecaps because they did beat them at the last game. As a Lions fan, the Packers are 0-2. So
yeah, right.
Coincidence? Yeah, definitely
absolutely.
But it's still a funny stat that I'm going to use until the Packers inevitably go 13-4 with Aaron Rodgers again.
Yes.
Let's zoom in on this because I did go back and double check on ESPN. The Rams are 0-2 against the 49ers. So in game one, the Rams were 7-3. And they lost to the 4-5 49ers 10-31. Stafford had 2 interceptions. Jimmy Garoppolo didn't throw an interception. He actually looks like kind of really good on the box, at least from a box score perspective.
Wow.
He looks really fantastic. And so no fumbles though. So it was just the 2 interceptions, which obviously, like we've talked about, this take that the Rams should either sneak away with this one or beat the spread, is very predicated on the fact that Stafford cannot turn the ball over. But man, this is going to make me a little bit scared because the next one was an overtime game. The Rams lost this game but won the NFC West because of how the Cardinals lost, I believe. So Stafford again had 2 interceptions. He did have 3 touchdowns this time, and Jimmy G had 2 interceptions. But the Rams did lead incredibly early in this one and seemed to kind of have this game, I thought, wrapped at 17-3, but the 49ers walked right back into it. Ended up winning in overtime. So maybe it is proof that, the team who scores first doesn't always win in overtime.
Yeah, it was definitely it's somewhat telling. I've said it 1,000 times. I'll say it again. I don't care about the regular season and the postseason. Most teams that I have heard of kind of have the mindset of as soon as that first postseason game starts, the season is now starting.
Yeah, you're 0-0.
Yeah, so you're 0-0. So nobody's thinking about past games. Nobody's thinking about the seed that you have next to your team name or whatever. They don't care. It's just we're going to go out and we're going to play our best. And I think that the Niners started playing the Rams in the back half of the season. And the back half of the season is where the Niners really picked up as a great team. And they are a great team right now. But I do think that the Rams are going to finally beat them when it counts. It's going to be like, the Bucs Saints thing. It's going to be the Niners or the Rams kryptonite until it matters.
All right, one last stat to scare all the Rams fans before we head into the weekend. Sean McVay is 3-7 against Kyle Shanahan, so that one might be a little bit of a nerve wracker if you're a Rams fan. All right, everybody, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next weekend where we talk the Pro Bowl and we give out our own player awards and we kind of talk about what we think the AP awards are going to look like. I'm Tom Zwiller.
I'm Tony Nemeti.